I invite you to watch this video that introduces us to Advent. Before we begin with Luke's prologue to his story of Jesus, let's reflect on this passage from Lamentations. Lamentations was a significant book for many of us during the worst days of the COVID-19 pandemic in 2020. It was a time of uncertainty, of mourning, and of fear. So listen to these words. Hear my plea. Don't close your ear to my need for relief, to my cry for help. Come near to me on the day I call to you. Say to me, don't be afraid. This is a plea to God to listen to our cries for help. This is begging God to tell us, don't be afraid. When have you begged God to hear your prayers? When have you pleaded with God to say to you, don't be afraid? The writer of the Gospel of Luke and Acts begins his gospel with these words from Luke 1. Now, after having investigated everything carefully from the beginning, I have also decided to write a carefully ordered account for you, most honorable Theophilus. I want you to have confidence in the soundness of the instruction you have received. So Luke has carefully read other people's accounts and has ordered this account of his gospel and dedicated it to the most honorable Theophilus. By the way, Luke's second volume, the book of Acts, continues the story with another dedication to Theophilus. What do we know about Theophilus? Well, in Greek, theo means God, thus theology is the study of God, and philos means friend or beloved, like Philadelphia is the city of brotherly love. So Theophilus may be a high-ranking Roman official, thus honorable. The name could also refer to anyone and everyone who is loved by God. Thus, the gospel was addressed to a man in history and is addressed to all of us, beloved by God throughout history. You know how books have an inscription like, to my beloved wife or to my parents, and then begin the book? Well, this part is like the inscription for Luke. And thus, in a sense, Luke's first words of his gospel itself is this. In the days of King Herod of Judea. What did that mean for the readers of Luke? Who was King Herod of Judea, and what were the times of King Herod of Judea like for the people? King Herod of Judea had the title of Herod the Great, King of the Jews. And the world of King Herod is a world shaped by violence and corruption and fear. This is no golden age of peace or spiritual clarity. It's a time of survival under empire. And his power was secured through imperial alliances and was maintained by coercion and surveillance and brutality. Herod the Great was great because of all his great buildings, including the rebuilt and restored Second Temple in Jerusalem. The buildings were paid for with excessive taxes on the people, but it also provided employment for many day laborers. He accumulated great wealth for himself as King of the Jews. And Herod was named King of the Jews by the Roman Senate. He served under the Roman Empire to rule his people. Herod was feared as a tyrant king because he was cruel to his own family and to the people of Judea. He ruled for 30 years, a very long time. And while he attempted to conform to Jewish law at times, he was more interested in keeping his non-Jewish Roman citizens happy. He introduced foreign kinds of entertainment. He built a golden eagle outside the Temple of Jerusalem to symbolize the Roman legion. And Herod was said to have been an utterly despotic and tyrannical ruler who suppressed any murmurs against him. Any opponents, including his own family members, were immediately removed. Historians suggest that he may have had a secret police of sorts to keep control of the opinions of the common people. He had a personal guard of 2,000 soldiers, and suggestions of protests against his will were dealt with forcefully. His paranoia about plots to take his power went to his family. He divorced his first wife for a political marriage to Marianne I. And when he grew suspicious of her and his 3 eldest sons, he had his wife and his 3 sons executed. And a few years later, he had 2 more sons tried and executed in a Roman court for treason. They wanted to assassinate their father. And around 5 BC, several young Jewish boys destroyed the golden eagle, that symbol of Roman rule he put outside the temple. And Herod had 40 students and 2 teachers burned alive. Herod's death was most probably about 4 BCE. We know his sons begin their reigns that year. And Rome would not name one new king of the Jews again. Instead, they had too much power in one man in Herod, so they split the areas between 3 sons. And one of those sons, Herod Antipas, is the Herod who ruled Judea when Jesus was an adult rabbi. After that Herod, he's the one that had John the Baptist beheaded. It's a bit confusing to have 2 Herods, but they were father and son. And before he died, King Herod, the king of the Jews, Herod the Great, was apparently so paranoid about not being mourned after his death that he had ordered that several distinguished men under his rule be killed the day after his death, so at least somebody would be mourning in Judea. Fortunately, it was an order his children did not carry out. All of that is background of the opening words from Luke, in the days of King Herod of Judea. There's a lot of fear behind those words. Fear of a murderous tyrant, fear of a wealthy king taking more and more money from the poor, fear of the Roman Empire that put him there to keep law and order, fear of what might happen next. In the days of King Herod of Judea, there was a priest named Zechariah who belonged to the priestly order of Abijah. We moved from the government ruler to the religious rulers, the priests of the temple. The priestly order of Abijah was the 8th out of 24 priestly divisions that King David had established to organize the temple services. priests in a division served in the temple of Jerusalem for 1 week, twice a year. His wife was descended from the daughters of Aaron, and her name was Elizabeth. So Zechariah, as a priest, descended from Aaron, Moses' mouthpiece in Exodus, and Elizabeth, his wife, also descended from Aaron. So this is a religious power couple, the elite of Jerusalem. And both of them were righteous before God, living blamelessly according to all the commandments and regulations of the Lord. They had lived righteous lives with other people, followed all the commandments and regulations of the Lord. And this religious power couple were faithful Jewish leaders. But they had no children because Elizabeth was barren, and both were getting on in years. Even though they were faithful religious leaders, they were suffering. Being barren, unable to have children, was seen as a judgment from God in those days. It was a cause for shame in public. And even though we understand fertility issues more today, for couples who want children but are unable to, that leads to intense grieving of what can't be. And having been through some of those trials myself, we're happy to talk to people if that means something to you too. Once, when he was serving as priest before God during his section's turn of duty, he was chosen by lot, according to the custom of the priesthood, to enter the sanctuary of the Lord to offer incense. So it's Zechariah's division's week to offer incense worship in the sanctuary, in the temple. And Zechariah himself is chosen by casting lots to be the one priest to go into the Lord's presence. 1 out of 2 weeks of the year that Zechariah had a chance, and he's chosen out of all the other priests in his division with a roll of the dice. Now, at the time of the incense offering, the whole assembly of the people was praying outside. Then there appeared to him an angel of the Lord standing at the right side of the altar of incense. While everybody's praying outside, an angel, a messenger from God, appears to Zechariah inside on the right side of the altar. Why the right side? The right side is always the place of honor and authority. Here the incense represents the people's prayers to God, and the angel at the right shows that the angel is speaking for God, with God's authority. When Zechariah saw him, he was terrified, and fear overwhelmed him. Luke uses the Greek verb tesseraio, to be terrified, troubled, disturbed, agitated. This is no fleeting startle. It evokes deep inner shaking, a disruption of his body and spirit. Terasso is the soul's recoil from the unexpected, the mind's clamor in the face of uncertainty, the body's trembling at the threshold of something it cannot control. In John 14:27, Jesus says, "Let not your hearts be troubled," terasso, "and do not let them be afraid," delaio. And the second term for Zechariah is delaio. Fear overwhelmed him. It implies a shrinking of the heart, a fear that stops him from acting and diminishes his courage. But the angel said to him, "Do not be afraid, Zechariah, for your prayer has been heard. Your wife Elizabeth will bear you a son, and you will name him John." And each time someone is afraid in God's presence, the word from God is do not be afraid. Do not be afraid. Fear not. Be not anxious. Words like these from God occur 365 times in the Bible. One reminder for each day that we do not need to fear God. And then the promise that puts away Zechariah and Elizabeth's fear of infertility. Your wife Elizabeth will bear a son, and you will name him John. Soon we will learn that John is John the Baptist, who will prepare the way in the wilderness for Jesus and his public ministry. For this is not just a story about one infertile couple about to have a baby. It is a story of the people of God who have been waiting and hoping for the birth of a Messiah from God to deliver them and give them new life. What voices do you hear in this scripture? I hear two fears. Fear of present powers, like Herod the king of the Jews, and a fear of a fleeting future. Eras marked by empire, oppression, uncertainty, and like Zechariah and Elizabeth, both descendants of the priesthood of Aaron, and both wondering if there's a future for their family line. The theme for the Sundays of Advent leading to Christmas Eve this year is, what do you fear? And we're taking time to face and name our fears so they don't have ultimate power over us. So what present powers cause you anxiety and fear? How does a sense of a fleeting future lessen your trust and hope in God's authority, the one on the right side of the altar of incense? This picture from this artwork from your devotional booklets is by Carmel Buglin Caldwell, and it's in our Advent devotional for this Sunday. The goal of the season is not to amplify fears that dismantle and disrupt our lives. Instead, our hope is to develop a compassionate relationship with fear, using it as a tool for deeper faith, bolder courage, resilient hope. We begin by acknowledging and releasing the fears that overwhelm us. And as we turn to Zechariah and Elizabeth's story, we realize that many of our fears show up as a longing, like a deep ache inside us. We long for a better world, a different story, a brighter future. And this is Zechariah and the Angel by Hannah Garrity. The angel is on the right in female form, surprising Zechariah in the temple, who turns in fear. And amidst the swirling incense, she offers hope of the stars and peace of the doves. In the days of Herod's cruel and self-serving rule, in the time of the agony of losing hope for the future, God breaks in with a new word of hope that startles us. Can we allow God to be near in the midst of all our fears this season? We began today with Lamentations, begging God, Lord, hear my plea, and wanting God to assure us, don't be afraid. And we end our reading from Luke, the assurance that God listens to us in the midst of our greatest fears. Fear not, your prayer has been heard. Fear not, your prayer has been heard. In her commentary, Boeing Leeds asks, what are we afraid to hope for? What have we stopped praying for? Where has fear caused us to shrink back? How do you answer those prompts? Your fears do not disqualify you. Instead, they mark the beginning of transformation. We beg God to listen, and God hears us. We beg God to tell us not to be afraid, and God tells us not to be afraid. And God assures us our prayers have been heard. May it be so with all the fears we bring to God this season of Advent.